Good evening, everybody. My name is Dr. Aminu Shitu. I'm an admin of the AfriScience network. I'm speaking from the Faculty of Veterinary Medicine at the Usman Danfodio University, Sokoto, Nigeria. Welcome to the AfriScience network webinar number 6. Today, 26th of October, 2023. We have with us Professor James O. Olopade, who is currently the principal investigator at the Humboldt Research Hub for Zoonotic Arboviral Diseases at the Faculty of Veterinary Medicine, University of Ibadan, Oyo State, Nigeria, who is going to deliver a webinar topic titled Next Pandemic, Are We Waiting or Are We Preparing? Stories from a Humboldt Research Hub. Before calling on Professor James O. Olopade to start, I would like to call for the reading of the citation of Professor James O. Olopade, which will be within 10 minutes. Very much.
Thank you. It gives me great pleasure to have been invited to read the citation of Professor James Olukayode Olopade, who happens to have supervised my PhD. Professor James Olukayode Olopade, an indigene of Ibadan, was born in Lagos 52 years ago to Chief James Oyelakin Olopade of Lanioka Compound, Itaege in Oroyo, Ward 5 of the Ibadan Southeast Local Government Area, Oyo State, and to Chief Mrs. Taiwo Aderiniola Olopade of blessed memory, who hailed from Sango-Ota, Ogun State. He attended Lantana Day School and Command Children's School, both in Lagos for his primary education. He then proceeded to the Command Secondary School Ibadan for his secondary education from 1981 to 1986, from where he gained admission to the University of Ibadan to study veterinary medicine in 1986. He graduated in 1992 and went for the compulsory National Youth Service in Maiduguri, Borno State, where he worked at the Vets Agric Nigeria Limited. From 1993 to 1996, Professor Olopade worked as a private veterinarian in home call duties. From 1996 to 1999, he was on discipleship training before securing a job as lecturer 2 in the Department of Veterinary Anatomy, University of Ibadan, in October 1999. He was promoted to lecturer 1 in 2003, senior lecturer in 2006, and full professor of veterinary anatomy in 2011, having obtained his master's and PhD degrees in the Department of Veterinary Anatomy in 2003 and 2006, respectively. Professor Olopade has his postdoctoral trainings at the Marine Biology Laboratory, Woods Hole, USA, during the neurobiology course of 2007, and as an International Brain Research Organization Fellow at the Department of Neurosurgery, Pennsylvania State College of Medicine, Hershey, USA, from 2008 to 2009. He obtained the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation Fellowship and proceeded to the Department of Experimental Neurosurgery, University of Würzburg, Germany, from 2010 to 2011. He also obtained the Grass Fellowship for short-term postdoctoral training in the Marine Biology Laboratory, USA, in 2013. He has served the University of Ibadan in various capacities, including as the Subdean undergraduate from 2003 to 2005, member of the Senate from 2011 to date, head of the Department of Veterinary Anatomy from 2014 to 2017, chairman of the Senate Undergraduate Admission Committee from 2014 to 2017, and the Dean of the Faculty of Veterinary Medicine, University of Ibadan from 2017 to 2019. He is currently the director of the Veterinary Teaching Hospital since 2021. He has been an external examiner to the University of Maiduguri the Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta, the Usman Dan Fodio University, Sokoto, the University of Ilorin, University of Nigeria, Nsukka, Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, University of Lusaka, Zambia, and the University of KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa. He has served as a visiting professor teaching anatomy and neuroscience at the University of Maiduguri, University of Abuja, University of Jos, and visiting scholar at the Penn State College of Medicine Marine Biology Laboratory at Woods Hole, University of Cambridge, and to the German's National Veterinary Research Institute, the Frederick Loeffler Institute at the island of Reims. Professor Olopade has been a counselor of the International Society of Neurochemistry and Africa Regional Council member of the International Brain Research Organization, President Society of Neuroscientists of Africa, and Editor-in-Chief, Nigerian Veterinary Journal. He is a fellow of the College of Veterinary Surgeons of Nigeria and a fellow of the Neuroscience Society of Nigeria. This outstanding veterinary anatomist has produced 12 PhD graduates in veterinary anatomy and neuroscience, numerous MSc students, and currently supervising 5 PhD students. He has an H-index of 24 and 162 publications in peer-reviewed journals, conference proceedings, chapters in books and copyrights, 113 of which have been produced since he became a professor. Notable among his works is the copyright for a unique depression in the frontal bone of goat skulls, which is now named the caudofrontal depression of Olopade. Professor Olopade has won numerous awards, scholarships, and prizes, including Best Lecturer in the Faculty of Veterinary Medicine, awarded by the Association of Veterinary Medical Students, University of Ibadan in 2000, 2002, 2010, and 2017. His research has been funded by the Senate Research Grant of the University of Ibadan, University of Ibadan Research Foundation, Alexander von Humboldt Foundation, Cambridge Alborada, International Brain Research Organization, International Society of Neurochemistry, the World Academy of Science, TIWAS, Tertiary Education Trust for TED Fund, and the MacArthur Foundation. He is the most cited veterinarian in Africa in the field of neuroscience. Recently, Professor Olopade was among the 6 scientists in Africa awarded a 5-year grant from the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation for pandemic preparedness on the continent. This grant is being used to set up the Humboldt Research Hub for zoonotic arboviral diseases in our Faculty of Veterinary Medicine at the University of Ibadan. He is a pastor in the Scripture Pastoral Christian Center, Ibadan, and is married to Dr. Funmilayo Olopade, a medical doctor and fellow neuroscientist, and their marriage is blessed with 2 wonderful sons. I present to you Professor James Olukayode Olopade. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Olumayowa Igado, for an excellent reading of Professor James Olopade's profile. So without wasting much time, I will invite Professor James Olopade to begin with the seminar talk. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. Very grateful to be here. Thank the African Research Network for this invitation. I hope I can be enabled to share my screen.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm still waiting for the enablement to come on. Now I said the host disabled participant sharing. Okay. Sorry for the initial hitches. Once again, I want to thank the African Research Network for this invitation. Going to move fast so that we can redeem the time. So the next pandemic, are we waiting or are we preparing? Stories from a Humboldt Research Hub. So not knowing whether we can have people who are not, maybe people from the diaspora on the Zoom. This is Nigeria, where we are, and then I am from Ibadan, and I'm a staff of the University of Ibadan. So, University of Ibadan, where I am, will be 75 years old next month, and that's Nigeria's oldest university. So, trying to change my slides. Just a minute, let me change the slides. I know when we say pandemic, everybody thinks mainly about COVID-19, which is a bad pandemic for our time. But the world has actually seen a lot of pandemics from medieval times, a lot of cholera pandemics, bubonic plague, Russian flu, Spanish flu. Then in our recent times, there was SARS, there was Middle Eastern Respiratory Syndrome. Sorry, I don't know why my slide is stick. I'll just try to fix it. Plagues have actually hit the world over time. And the bubonic plague actually led to about 200 million deaths in the 1400s. Smallpox, about 56 million were killed by smallpox. 50 million are known to have died from the Spanish flu. And about HIV is still ongoing. So to say, it is still ongoing. It's still a challenge worldwide, accounting so far for about 35 million deaths. So while each death is a painful experience, people who have lived in the last 20 years looked as if what has happened with COVID, nobody has ever experienced such a thing before. And has taken roughly over 7 million lives. So, but there have actually been pandemics in the world that has been far worse, taking tens of millions of lives. So we may not yet be free from pandemics. We may not yet be free from pandemics. But are we preparing as we are doing now? And really, are we actually preparing, or we are creating a scenario where pandemics can occur again? Human beings have encroached too much familiarity into animal habitats. Human behavior has been quite an unrestrained phenomenon. You can see on the left of the screen, the danger to swine influenza. People have pigs as pets. People kiss camels. They have African giant rats as pets. People have chimpanzees as pets. There's a lot of intensive farming. So all this has risky behavior, occupational hazards, has shown that we are fraternizing with a possibility of another outbreak. And on my right, even though this is not to scale per year or for this year, but God goes to show that small vectors like mosquitoes takes more life than humans do. Humans fight wars, they have gun violence, home invasions with fatalities, but the diseases spread by mosquitoes cause more deaths than human activity, than snake bites, than bites from dogs. So it's not how mighty one is that creates the problem. Now, in the world, tracking reports that has come from all around the world, there has been a spread of arboviruses. So viruses that have been transmitted by insect vectors. And some of them we have seen in recent times. Some probably because if you are not doing animal research, you may not know. Some are strictly human, like Zika virus, but yellow fever, dengue, but there are other tick-borne encephalitis that affect animals. So diseases like that have actually spread around the world. A striking one that they are worried about in Europe now is West Nile, because they've seen a spread across Europe in the last 30, 40 years. And not just a spread, but there's also danger in mutation of the virus. And that's why in the Western world, with what we saw with COVID, it became obvious that we may not be able to wait for the next pandemic. We need to prepare to know where it can come from, which viruses are at risk of becoming pandemics, so that we are better prepared, not just to react at the occurrence. The amount of lives that may be lost may be too many. Now, everybody is living together. When we were in school, my generation in secondary school, we were told about man being high up, and then other animals live at their different environments. The animals had their separate environments in the farm. The farms are not in the cities. Some animals were restricted deep in the forest. But what we have transited to is we have created an ecosystem that we all closely knit together. The snakes are around men. The rats are around. The animals, domestic animals, are now around. So this is a false One Health, a dangerous type of One Health that we are living in that can predispose mankind to epidemics and pandemics. So there are dangers of future pandemics. And how are we getting ready? Just a minute. I think I need to reshare my screen. Or are you seeing my screen?
No. No, sir.
No, sir. The host, I think I need to reshare my screen. It just went off.
Yes, go ahead, sir. You can do it now.
Okay.
Sorry for the interruption. I think.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, we can see it now. Very good.
Thank you. Yes, so there are future pandemics that we need to beware of. So factors influencing pandemics. The human factor. And we transport a lot of animals now. That has brought the risk of pandemics. Globalization. Somebody who has been bitten by a vector and is incubating a disease. The incubation period of that disease probably starts to show from 24 to 48 hours. But in 6 hours, the person has moved from Lagos to France, while the disease is just incubating. 50, 70, 80 years ago, it used to take people weeks to travel by sea. But now in 6 hours, max some 8 hours, you can be from one end of Africa, either to Asia far east or to the Americas far west. So globalization, our ease of transport, urbanization, where we have to cut a lot of forest to build new cities and encroach into animal habitat. And the animals themselves, the vectors, the birds, they are migrating. They are known to be vectors for many diseases, and their migration pattern is changing, probably due to climate change. So I remember some years ago when there was an epidemic of blue tongue in the UK and lower southern Europe after a long and extended hot summer in the Mediterranean, allowing colicoidus to move further from Africa with a warmer climate into the southern part of Europe. So vector migration, climate change, all react together to make chances of pandemics possible. And then you have viruses that themselves are mutating. They are mutating, and sometimes the mutation leads to higher virulence. So with a gain of function. So those are the things making pandemics to be things we have to think about, and humans are more at risk. Diseases most times or many times are just endemic. So the COVID-19 that was so scary before is now having this pattern. One sporadic cases here in Europe, few cases in North America, one case in South Africa, one case. So have endemic disease. They've not gone completely, but they still show their ugly heads once in a while. But in epidemic, you have an increased number of cases in a particular region. Just like we had Zika virus epidemic a while ago in South America. And then you have pandemic when you have increase in cases across several parts of the continent, like we had in COVID-19. So this paper is published in 2020, lead authors from Redeemers University, Infectious Disease Outbreak Preparedness and Response in Nigeria. So history, limitations, and recommendations for global health policies. And 5 emerging diseases that they reported had battled humans. The 5 top ones, imagine and reimagine, are Lassa fever, monkeypox, Ebola, yellow fever, and polio. So, which was on a verge of being eradicated, but Nigeria kept having cases. And now COVID-19 had joined that. Now, those are humans. Now, in 2018, it was a nice review, endemic and emerging arboviral diseases of livestock in Nigeria. So these are diseases with insect vectors that affect livestock. And these were from Oluwayelu, Adebi, and our revered father, Professor Tomori. and they showed human diseases that have been endemic in the country: blue tongue, Rift Valley, West Nile, African horse sickness, Crimean Congo, African swine fever, and so on, Velsenbrunn, Akabon, and when they were reported in Nigeria. So that was a beautiful review to show disease pattern of at least whether they've been there before, but the first time they were being reported. So we had from the EDE group at least a review on imagine and reimagine diseases that have epidemics in humans, and then this review cascaded arboviral diseases in livestock in Nigeria. But the interplay of human and livestock is zoonosis. And so back to the authors who wrote the one of livestock. So Tomori and Oluwayelu, this paper just came out in annual reviews. They looked at domestic animals as potential reservoirs of zoonotic viral diseases. And so gradually we are coming home to what we are talking about this evening, that diseases are incubating, so to say, transforming within animal hosts. And when you now have them transmitting it to humans, some diseases that humans are not used to before, just like when monkeypox came up. So you have zoonotic diseases are becoming the major emerging infectious diseases. Currently, zoonosis accounts for about 73% of emerging infectious diseases. And about 25% of zoonosis are coming from the domestic animals that are close to us, animals that we live with. In the hospital a few days ago, about 2 weeks ago, we had to treat a goat. So I was surprised when I saw doctors around it, but the goat is a pet. To the man, it's not a food animal. It's a pet to the family. So, fine, anybody has a right to make anything a pet, but there are risk factors for such things. So viruses account for approximately 30% of all zoonotic infections. And the authors, Oluwayelu and Tomori, concluded that effective response and control of zoonotic disease call for multiple sector involvement and collaboration, according to the One Health concept. So let me now tell a story about how we prepare for tomorrow. We do it by the life we live today. Over a span of many years, the three Africans that you see on the screen, Professor Oluwayelu, myself, Professor Olopade, my good friend, Dr. Clement Meseko, separately, not introducing one another, separately, had been mentored by a professor in Gambia, who is the head of novel and infectious diseases at the German Veterinary Research Institute, Frederick Lufla. Because I was involved in neuroscience research and looking into prion diseases, Professor Oluwayelu with Crimean Congo, he had a link with Professor Groshoff, and Clement Meseko as a top virologist involved at Nigeria's Veterinary Research Institute, had worked at the German Veterinary Research Institute and has a collaboration with Professor Groshoff. So separately, in our quest for diligence and knowledge, our paths had crossed inadvertently with a third party. However, just about 3 years ago, 3 of us decided to put our strength together to form a neurovirology team. There was no call, there was no grant, but we said, let us constantly interact as people who want to work together in the field of neurovirology. And that in case a grant may come, or we have a proposal that we can put together, we can always work together. So we wrote a one-page concept to form a neurovirology team in this tripartite. So few months after we had, in principle, the formation of our team, Alexander von Humboldt made a call for Humboldt research hubs to be created in Africa. This is within a framework of African-German partnership, so that 6 hubs, research hubs, can be set up in Africa with the aim of pandemic preparedness. So Alexander von Humboldt Foundation collaborated with Bayer Foundation, also in Germany, to provide a space for 6 hubs. While Alexander von Humboldt Foundation will fund 5 hubs, the Bayer Foundation will fund 1 hub. And funding will be to a max of 750,000 euros over a period of 5 years. So immediately I saw this call, I called our tripartite team that we had formed together. And I said, let us look. And we needed to, they gave the conditions that the PI, the submitting PI, must be a Humboldt fellow. And I think for that, myself and Clement Meseko fell in. PI must be back in his country and be a full professor. Must have a collaborative partner in Germany. Must have a second collaborative partner within Nigeria, but not in the institution of the PI. And then an experienced junior partner if the PI is not primarily in pandemic-related research. So we saw that we had a fit into this call. I explained my collaboration with the German partner. We talked about our neurovirology team, and we had Professor Happy of Rikimas University come in as the collaborative partner, and Dr. Bakri in Imrat in UCH as an experienced junior partner. So we had a team, and we wanted to look at arboviral diseases in wildlife, principally, to see how wildlife can serve us if they are reservoirs for many, for some common arboviruses. Particularly, we're hoping we could also major on viruses that affect the nervous system. So Professor Happy, a renowned and well-experienced genomic virologist, is a collaborative partner. And we plan to look at the risk of wildlife across Benin Republic, Nigeria, and Cameroon. So when we wrote the grant, we had Dr. Roland Eric Yesinu from Abomey-Cavey University in Benin Republic join our team, and the head of the Veterinary Research Institute in Cameroon, Professor Abdulvade, also joined our team, while Dr. Bakri is from the Institute of Advanced Research and Training at the University College of Medicine, Ibadan, University College Hospital. So our research, the mandate for Research Hub, so we applied, and the mandate that is expected for Research Hub is that it's a hub for pandemic preparedness. It will involve the building of laboratory capacity in the PI's institution. The hub should fund equipment and consumables for disease surveillance and research. The hub will fund conferences and workshops as part of human capacity training and development, but intensely build capacity by having PhD students on the grants who can be qualified to become future Humboldtians and in the course of this grant have research stay in Germany. So based on the requisite recommendations, also to say what is expected of us, we followed the pattern of expectation and submitted our application. And at the end of the day, 6 hubs were funded in Africa, were successful. You know, some of my colleagues are on this Zoom meeting. I honor them. It's the 6 teams. Professor Ezra in Zimbabwe, of the 6 of us, is the only social scientist. He is looking at religion and cultural values in women, how it can be involved at the local level in preventing pandemic and spread of infectious diseases. The only woman amongst us, our queen, our princess and queen, she's actually a queen of infectious disease research in Africa. From Congo Brazzaville, Dr. Francine Untomi, looking at COVID. I mean, that's the application and COVID spread with other diseases. My friend, Dr. Simeon, Professor Simeon from Cameroon, is actually looking at phytochemistry. So he's a chemist, phytochemistry in disease prevention. And then myself, our application succeeded in Ibadan. Romain from University of Abomey in Benin Republic is a statistician, and he is a bioinformatician. So he's working on modeling of COVID-19, looking at the demographics with a way to predict spread and optimize areas where vaccines should intervene. I'm proud to say that 2 of us, of the 6, are from Nigeria. Professor Olushola Ojurongbe is in Lautech, and he is also looking at COVID-19, interaction with other diseases, and genomics of people with COVID-19. So these are the 6 hubs that were funded in Africa for the 5-year period. So let me zero in on the hub in Ibadan, the Humboldt Research Hub for Zoonotic Arboviral Diseases, HRHZ. So it started in 2021, headed by me, and we collaborate with Professor Martin Groscher, that's our collaborator in Germany, and Professor Christian Happy of Redeemers University. And the aim of the hub is the detection and identification of endemic and emerging arboviral threats, principally among wildlife, using the Benin Republic, Nigeria, and Cameroon axis. The hub investigates the occurrence of, this is particularly what we wrote at the grant, Rift Valley, Crimean Congo, West Nile, Velsembrun, and Middleburg viruses. These are common and neglected arboviruses to determine their respective public health significance. So the major emphasis for the hub is the development of a repository for the analysis of serum and plasma and tissues of wild rodents, like the African giant rat, the greater cane rat, the squirrel, hedgehogs, pangolin, vultures, birds, cattle egrets, crows, okay? And then we also, so far, be looking at also some domestic animals, wild animals, the deer, apes. So the research hub has partners in University of Abomey in Cameroon and in Nigeria. So that's the axis: Benin Republic, Nigeria, and Cameroon. So what have we done in the hub? Since now I want to zero on this, that based on the title, a story from a Humboldt hub from Nigeria. The first thing is we have to build cold chain facilities. We are going to get serum, samples, from across the country. And then our partners will be working in Benin and in Cameroon. So we have to get freezers, -80, -40, and currently in the lab, then we have about 14 of these. Well, I want to believe most of us here are in Nigeria that are listening. Well, some may be my friend from, I know I've seen my friend from Cameroon, from Benin Republic. So, and I'll be visiting Benin Republic in December. I've been to Cameroon. I didn't see the electricity power problem that we have in Nigeria. I didn't see it in Cameroon. So if you want to do this kind of research in Nigeria, we have to build capacity on making sure that we have constant electric power to power all our freezers. So we have to build a 13 kVA capacity, in which after they've done an energy audit, so far I'm told by January we may have to upgrade to 20 kVA. So because if we don't have this in place, then obviously we are not going to be successful in our research. So because we are collecting samples from different sites, from Benin Republic, and I will show later, Nigeria, to make a national spread. So all the centers where we are collecting samples, a deep freezer was bought for every sample collecting site. Okay, so which I'll show later. So I think we bought about 7 or 8 deep freezers. And because we are collecting a lot of samples from Maiduguri, when I visited Maiduguri, I saw there was an entrenched power problem in Maiduguri around that time, I think for about 6 months, because of the insurgency and they did not have. So we had to invest in solar panels, batteries for electricity for our partners in Maiduguri. The hub has been involved in training, in workshops, and in network meetings. So as part of the fulfillment of the mandate that was given for the creation of the hub, how to collect samples. We had talks from experts how to preserve samples, how to collect samples in the field and preserve them, how to preserve samples that we are looking for RNA viruses and so that's part of capacity building that is a mandate from the for the setting up of the hub. And in addition to that, the hub has had to train people resident in the hub. Definitely training has gone across, but those who are resident in the hub, so that the Humboldt were interested in making sure that the next generation is invested into as part of mandate of the hub. So the hub in Ibadan here has had youth corpers taking on the account of the hub, and they've all made progress. Many of them are finished. Irene has proceeded to medical school. Kenny was an OND. She came to do a 1-year internship and then proceeded rather to a BSc program in the University of Ibadan. Jude was an intern with the lab and is now on an Erasmus program. Then we have 2 resident PhD students, Dr. Ihai and Dr. Chinyere. So they are the Humboldt postgraduate PhD fellows who are doing their work in the hub, and will, by statutes of the grant, have oversee German stay during the period of their PhD training. Dr. Omolola Lawal is in Redeemers University as a master's student sponsored on the hub, and Dr. Kende is also master's student on the hub, also in Redeemers University. So we started collecting samples from across the country. Like I said, samples have been collected by our partners in Benin. They are doing a tremendous work in Benin. So, and then we are collecting samples from across the country. So these are areas, collected samples from Maiduguri, from the Jos, from Axis, from Abuja, from Ilorin, from Ibadan. across Osun State, across Ondo State, across Enugu, and across Ebonyi. These are the places we have collected samples so far. And as at this month of so far, these are the greater. Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you, sir.
Okay, good. Okay, I just want to make. So we've collected samples from across the country. So these are animals we have collected samples from the hedgehog, from apes, from horses, cattle, from dogs, from bats, pangolin, crows, cattle egrets, pigeons, African giant rats. So, and then our partners from Benin have been collecting from African giant rats, greater cane rats, monitor lizards, deer, and others. So these are sample collections that we have done in the field, and I will show later for the rodents, for the birds, all the samples after collecting serum from them and plasma, the samples are frozen. The samples are frozen so that when we have any positive ID from serum or viral presence, we can always go back to the animal we collected the samples from and type and do a localization of the viruses in the different organs. So these were collected samples from serum, plasma, and swabs from all these animals, and they are frozen. So part of the advocacy that we were involved in was that since we had a hub for pandemic preparedness, in the course of us working, there was an outbreak of African horse sickness in Nigeria, and then so we in collaboration with the veterinary teaching hospital and the Lagos state government, polo clubs were able to get involved in collecting samples in horses across the country. And then part of my mandate as PI, this was the visit to the Veterinary Research Institute in Cameroon, the Veterinary Research Institute in Vom, and this was my visit to my friend, the Humboldt Hub in Cameroon, Professor Simeon Kwam, and I've also definitely visited the hub in Lautech with Professor Jurongba, and I'll talk about that later. So these are the animals that we have collected. Like I've mentioned, if I missed any out, like, okay, the rabbits and shrew, so pigs, AGR, and these were sample sizes from Ibadan, from Meduguri, from Ilorin, from Vom, from Ede. That's the redeemers who were the ones that actually collected samples across Osun, Ebonyi, Ondo, and then it's from Benin Republic, so different animals. So as of today, we have a total of about 2,500 samples collected across various animals. And for the animals that you see that are starred, that you have an asterisk with them, it means for those animals, the whole carcass of the animal was frozen. So we have the whole carcass of those animals. So that's our sample. And I said, for now, we have actually ended the sample collection phase. So we'll be moving into the next phase. Currently, we've
I think we have lost the audio from Professor Olopade. Now he's
Okay, I think the network went off briefly.
yes, sir. You need to reshare your
Yes.
screen, please.
Yes, I'll do that. Okay. Sorry, that was network. So so let me repeat this slide in case the network went off. So I said, now we finished the sample collecting phase, and now we are in Ibadan. We are concentrating for now on West Nile. We have a PhD student on that. On African horse sickness, we have a PhD student on that. And with our collaborator in Maiduguri, there's a PhD student on Crimean Congo. And then our collaborative partners in Redeemers University, they are looking at Velsenbrunn, and they are looking at Middelburg. Okay, so these are the diseases that that we are looking at. I think there may be one or two spreads to more diseases, but these are the primary ones that we are focusing on. And for samples that the antibody profile titer is quantified, we'll now progress into virus characterization, virus isolation, and virus characterization using first viral detection using PCR, and then we'll go into virus characterization. So, and then for the animals that we see a viral presence or antibody presence in rodents and the birds, we are going to go to the brains of these animals and other organ system and use immunohistochemistry and immunofluorescence to see the presence of the viruses, to see which organs they have predilection sites from, and with a possibility of using neutralizing antibodies, particularly for virus like West Nile that cross-react. And with our partners in Germany, we now hope to do immunoelectron microscopy for structural identification of the viruses. So viruses that we see, we'll go through a sequence so that we have their characterization. Okay, just ensure my slides can move. So now, as we research, you have organic growth, like African horse sickness was not part of what we were planning for at the beginning. Since we are now having an epidemic in Nigeria, and we've been mandated to set up a hub for pandemic preparedness, we are given permission to go into research with African horse sickness and actually go into any other diseases now. So we have enough samples we've collected, and we're hoping to the future look at monkeypox surveillance with the samples that we have. Our collaborators in Redeemers University are already looking into Akabe. With our partners in Lautech, Dr. Jurongwe, who is also a hub, has a Humboldt research hub. We'll be looking at some work together on COVID-19, which I'll talk about. And then we are looking forward to collaborating with human institutions where they have a bank of serum for humans. Okay, so I know we've opened discussion with Nigerian Institute of Medical Research. We open discussion with our colleagues in UCH, so that where they already have human samples, we can now be looking at presence of West Nile viruses, these zoonotic viruses in human samples. Like I gave a presentation in Tunisia a few days ago. The symptoms of malaria is classically the symptoms of West Nile in humans. And we have known of cases, some of us have the experience where we have febrile, we have headaches, we have body aches, and they actually did the blood smear and we were malaria negative. And well, we were still treated for malaria and we got better. So some of these, how many of them actually are zoonotic diseases like West Nile, Crimean Congo, or even co-infection of malaria and West Nile? So that's the importance of the collaboration we're having with our human colleagues on this One Health. And just to say ahead now that we are open to collaboration since we have this repository of samples that we have kept. So the hub is, so apart from collecting samples, well, even the first mandate is to build capacity, research capacity in the PIS institution. So we are building from the scratch a BSL2 facility in at the University of Ibadan, so which is really almost completed. So we also have our equipment purchased that will be setting up in our BSL2 facility, our biosafety cabinet, laminar flow, autoclaves, incubators, PCR machine, real-time PCR machine, ammo mixers, high-powered centrifuges, and also already building the equipment down so that we can move into the next phase. So I think I'm gradually rounding up. And this is a case study that, because Professor Durongbe is in Lautech, and we had collected samples from dogs. We are hoping to Professor Durongbe works on COVID. So we decided that, okay, let's even, as two hubs present in Africa and close together, let's even look at the presence of COVID-19 in dogs. And then we collected about 200 samples of serum samples from dogs. And we already knew from the literature that dogs, cats, minks, lions were animals that are known to have contacted COVID-19, at least shown antibody presence. And South Africa is actually the only country that had reported SARS-CoV-2 illness in lions and pumas, but there was no information on dogs and cats, so in the African continent. But Shorunke, working in Lagos, had actually collected serum samples from 154 dogs in Lagos and looking at IgM antibodies in Lagos State, so that we were positive. So in working with Professor Durongbe, what we did was we had rapid kit tests for diagnosis of viral presence. And we collected from 200 dogs. So, and when we used the rapid kit test, we were surprised that 12%, about 23 dogs, are positive, not antibody, but viral presence using the rapid kit test. So 12% of our samples were positive, and that was shocking to us. We are expecting our antibodies, so we are still going to do antibody presence for the 200 samples. And then we went back to trace those 23 dogs. This was probably, if we look at the timeline, somewhere between 6 to 10 months later, we were able to get to 7 out of those 23 dogs. Some people had relocated because we went after those 23 dogs. Some had relocated, some dogs had died. But these animals, some came to be treated for something else. Some just came for regular deworming. So we are not looking at classical signs of COVID among them at all. And we're able to trace 7 dogs back 6 to 10 months after. And surprisingly, using the rapid kit test, 5 of the 7 were still positive for COVID-19 rapid test, and were positive using PCR. So 5 remain positive, and we still hope this now another 5 months after to still go after these dogs and those 7 dogs and collect the samples again. So, like I said, we're going to do antibody prevalence in all the samples, and then we already have primers for other coronaviruses to see whether there could be those animals who are actually having coronaviruses of pigs, of dogs, which could have been a source of pre-immunity. Okay, and then we're also developing questionnaires for the human custodians of those dogs to know how many of them had suffered from, had been diagnosed with COVID or had symptoms of COVID, who are the owners of these pets, to see where the infection may be coming from. We're looking forward to doing the sequencing of the virus, SARS-CoV virus that we have obtained from these dogs, and that's an ongoing work with our collaborators in LoudTech. So the point I'll make, 2 points I'll make from this slide is, can these animals reinfect humans? As at the literature today, the risk is said to be low, but we feel that this must be constantly evaluated. We as veterinarians know diseases of dogs that can reduce their immunity, leptospirosis, parvoviral enteritis. So if animals that have COVID-19 and are not showing any symptoms, but their serum has so far shown long-standing stay, meaning that the virus is replicating in them of COVID-19, if they now come down with a disease that lowers their immunity, what will be the consequence of the viral presence? Will it replicate more? Will it now show a disease phenotype? And this has set a stage for us for a national surveillance amongst pets, particularly dogs, household pets, for COVID-19 presence. So vigilance remains the key to prevent the next pandemic. So how do we prepare in peacetime when there's no pandemic? When pandemics come, we have to react, we have to act. But how do we prepare in peacetime? Constant surveillance, particularly with national outlook. So samples are collected from different parts of the country. So we have a national outlook of prevalence rates. Then we need as a country to invest more in the development of diagnostic kits for endemic viruses, endemic diseases. Because, I mean, in working as a hub, we are seeing serious problems, cost, exchange rates, bureaucracies in the university, financial bureaucracy with Central Bank of Nigeria in accessing Forex to buy things abroad. Okay, bureaucracies in university, bureaucracies in financial process. So once we know, like Lassa fever, Rift Valley, yellow fever, these are endemic, we need as a country to invest so that we can develop kits and do quality assurance and be sure that everything is okay. Then be making these kits ourselves, because that's what is going to make research more easy. If we are developing kits ourselves and patronizing those kits, okay? We need well-equipped state and regional infectious disease hospitals, okay? Because that's always the reason why there is a spread. People are sick, you have this diphtheria outbreak, you have Lassa fever outbreak, but most of the hospitals are not prepared. So we need well-equipped in the states and some iconic hospitals regionally so that it can help with human patients. Repository hubs in low resource settings. Haven't had to set up 13 kVA inverter system with solar panels and then upgrading to 20. I know in place, I mean, once, if there are no big grants like this, how can that be set up? And we need to be collecting samples across the country. So one of my recommendations is that universities that, I mean, we don't have access to too much funds can have a central repository. So you have the university invest in a place with solar panels, with batteries, maybe 40 kVA, and then people who now have freezers and who may not be able to afford to keep it in their own lab can go to those central facilities and keep their freezers. Even some of the richest places in the Western world, that's how they keep repositories. So rather than each lab can't maintain one freezer that they have, there's no light for 2 days, there's no light for 6 hours. How can you keep out any viruses in such environments? And one other way to prevent, knowing our strength, is to probe more into antiviral compounds from local plants. That's very important. That's things we can be doing in peacetime to get ready for pandemics. Let's prove them. Let's do quality assurance. Let's see that they reduce viral load. Let's look at the mechanism of action. So surveillance basic research should still be going on in peacetime, and that's how we prepare for the next pandemic, not just waiting for a pandemic to come that overwhelms the system. In conclusion, there remains a global risk of viral epidemics and pandemics. Some of these viruses are neurotropic, the ones we are working on, West Nile, Crimean Congo, African horse sickness, Del syndrome. Research into and clinical diagnosis of nervous involvement should be intensified. Surveillance remains a key tool to be one step ahead of the virus. Africa needs to step up surveillance and research capacity. I want to look at some papers just to give an example of papers with colleagues, my collaborator in Germany. This is a national surveillance of West Nile among birds, resident and migratory birds in Germany. This was the monitoring done in 2010 by the research team. This is monitoring done 2 years later. This 2012, they published in Zoonosis. Now, between 2012 and 2017, they have a few more papers, but some of them are basic research. But they did another national surveillance, Western and Lesotho monitoring of wild birds in Germany. This is 2018. Then, in 2021, they looked at co-infection of Western and Lesotho from birds in Germany. And they just recently published this last year, spread of West Nile virus and Lesotho in German bird population between 2019 and 2020. This is the kind of capacity that I'm talking about that we need to build in the system where we are constantly doing a surveillance. And then with time, we can know that this lab in Sokoto, they are looking at Crimean Congo. This lab in Redeemers, they are looking at Lassa, but with a national spread. And then every 2 years, they can tell us antibody profile, viral profile, if the virus is mutating. And then because the way the world is going to now is that for every disease that is of epidemic or pandemic potential, they want to create an international database. So by the time you do all your prevalence studies, you log in your results so that everybody around the world has a profile of prevalence rates, virus characteristics across different countries across the world. Because if it's a pandemic, you need a global view. COVID showed that nobody was safe when your neighbor was not safe. And so, as Africa, as people from our own continent, because I see that people from outside Nigeria, particularly from Africa, we need to prepare. We need to build capacity, particularly in peacetime. I know when COVID came, it brought in a lot of equipment. It brought in a lot. So some of those equipment, we need to continue working with them to build capacity. Let me thank, these are the Humboldt Research Hub winners and our German collaborating partners when we had our network meeting in Berlin in June. So it's to thank Alexander von Humboldt and Bayer Foundation for this huge investment of funding for pandemic preparedness in Africa, of which we are a beneficiary. And then, since we are doing surveillance across the country, definitely my partners in Benin Republic and Cameroon, I acknowledge them. But let me acknowledge the team in Nigeria. So from different parts, from Ilorin, from Vom, from Maiduguri, Nsukka, and Jos, Enugu, that our Redeemers partners are collecting from, and our German collaborator, Professor Groshop. So these are the PhD students. Dr. Ihanyi is the one working on West Nile from the samples. Dr. Chinyere is working on African horse sickness, and Dr. Galadima is working on Crimean Congo. I think with that, I say a big thank you, and I am happy to take your question. So I'm told that I need to see to the question and answers by myself. So I will call. I mean, if you have any question, you can just show by raise of hands. Oh, Aminu is there. Hello, Dr.
Yes,
Aminu.
Professor.
Okay,
Yes,
so I
Professor.
think yes.
Yes, I'm around.
Yeah, finished.
So we are in Q. Yeah, we are in Q&A session now. So the floor is open for question and answer, please. Yep. I haven't seen anybody.
The questions or comments?
Questions, comments, contributions?
I have a comment and a question, please.
Okay, you're welcome. Go ahead,
Yeah.
please.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Olopade, for the nice presentation. And thank you also for setting up this massive infrastructure and capacity for future research in Africa. And also for training the next generation of African researchers. This are really big. I'm just wondering because I saw a very nice spread of your clusters across different border areas in Nigeria. I'm from Sokoto, so I'm just wondering why Sokoto was left out, because we have a nice border also with Niger Republic. So this would be a very nice point also to collect samples.
That's a very beautiful question. Or do you still have your comment? Okay, no, I think I can answer. That's a very nice question, Dr. Yaya. We started, I think the honest truth is, we started with a national spread to virtually every corner of the country. But the collaborator that we're working with in Sokoto and the collaborator we're working with in Bayelsa didn't come up with the goods. So they just didn't produce results. They didn't collect samples. So we had to stop since nothing was coming from there. The good thing is that once we do this, once we cross this third year and we have our first set of results, at the fourth year, we will go back to a supplementary sample collection. And I can assure you that when we do that, we are coming to Sokoto. We are coming to Sokoto. It's of no joy to us that we don't have samples from Sokoto, particularly that Sokoto borders other countries and there is transboundary diseases
Movement.
and transboundary movement. So we are really looking forward to go at the fourth year to come into supplementary sample collection, particularly when our first set of samples shows a particular disease pattern. We want a complete picture, or we want to come to Sokoto. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor, for that assurance. We are looking forward to that. Any question, please? Question, comments, contribution? I think Professor James Olopade, we should end up this webinar in the absence of any question or comment or contribution. Before that, I would like to, first of all, express our heartfelt gratitude to you, Professor James Olopade, for delivering this insightful and thought-provoking webinar on the next pandemic. Are we waiting or are we preparing? Stories from a Humboldt Research Hub. We are truly honored to have had Professor Olopade share his experience with us shedding light on critical aspects of zoonotic arboviral diseases and pandemic preparedness. Professor Olopade's presentation has not only expanded our knowledge, but it has also ignited a sense of urgency in addressing the pressing issues of our time. His dedication to the field of research and his commitment to fostering scientific collaboration across borders through the Humboldt Research Hub is indeed commendable. And in conclusion, I would like us to remember that the challenges posed by emerging diseases require our collective effort and vigilance. The AfriScience Network is committed to facilitating such collaborations and knowledge sharing. We extend our gratitude to all participants who joined us today, making this webinar a success. Thank you once again, Professor Olopade, and to our audience for your active engagement and participation. I believe that together we can strive for a healthier and more resilient future. Once again, my name is Aminu Shitu from the Faculty of Veterinary Medicine at the Usman Ofodo University, Sokoto in Nigeria. My research interest includes quantitative epidemiology, farm animal health, and global health, and currently working on udder health in lactating cows and the epidemiology of mastitis as well. And on behalf of the AfriScience Network team, we say thank you. And other members of the AfriScience Network team include Professor Folorunsho Fashina, who is currently with the Food and Agriculture Organization's headquarters at Rome in Italy, with a research interest in quantitative epidemiology, animal health, economics, One Health, and Professor Kehinde Shoitan with the Biochemistry Department at the Faculty of Veterinary Medicine, University of Ibadan, with research interest in nutritional biochemistry. Dr. Haya Abubakar Yabo of the Faculty of Veterinary Medicine, Usman Ofodo University, Sokoto, who is currently working on cancer biology in a German research institute in Germany. Dr. Ismail Odetokun of the Faculty of Veterinary Medicine at the University of Ilorin, also interest in quantitative epidemiology, food safety, antimicrobial resistance, and One Health. And Dr. Mary Nankia, she's an East African biochemical scientist and industrialist. She is based in London, in the United Kingdom, and in Paris, France. We all say thank you very much, Professor James Olopade, for a wonderful presentation today. And thanks to all the audiences for listening. Thank you very much, and we look forward to having you more in the future, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.